It's a lovely lake while you wait. Camp WALABEAR, Camp WALABEAR. Come on in and let us show you around the place. Even when it's raining, we got sunshine. At WALABEAR, we always have a fun time. Camp WALABEAR, Camp WALABEAR. Come early and you'll never leave too late.
Smile and say, cheese. Cheese. Watch the birdie. Make a silly face and say, dog toenails. Dog toenails. It's obvious we are talking about photography. Yes, and we'll talk a lot more about photography. But first, let's visit our old pal, Tommy the Swami, high in the great Swami Mountains.
Greetings, curious ones. I was just thinking about an old saying. A picture is worth 1,000 words. What a wonderful saying. It means that sometimes words are not needed to describe something. You can just look. You know, the same could be said about your feelings. There are times when the expression on your face describes the way you feel. I will demonstrate. If I frown like this, I am sad. If I wrinkle my face like this, I am angry. Urgh. If I open my eyes wide like this, I am surprised. And if I smile like this, naturally, I am happy. Just like I am whenever I am talking with you. So, until next time, Sim Salabim, and may the road to enlightenment be free of toll booths.
And we are back. And as we continue to learn all about photography, we have some real live photographers right here. We have with us Sheila and Peggy, the picture people. How about a big Camp WALABEAR welcome? Yay! Now, picture person Sheila, this is a camera, correct?
This is a camera. It's not a camera we're accustomed to seeing these days because a lot of photographers have stopped using these cameras.
So this is kind of like an old-timey camera.
It's an old-timey in that it's very much like all of the old cameras you see in all your picture history books because it's the same concept except this is a new camera. It's actually a new one.
Yeah, I've seen some old-timey cowboy movies that were like on late at night when I was, you know, up later than I should have been. And the cowboys that are sitting, posing for these pictures have to stand real still, and there's a guy, and he's got this cloth over him, and he's got this thing holding up like this. So.
Right. The larger the camera, the larger the film, the larger the lenses, then the harder it is to work with. So they really had a tough job back then working out in the field and in studios where people had to sit for as long as 8 minutes for a picture. And this
Can you say sore back?
Yeah, they had these things to hold their head real still, and so, but you know, the first camera ever made was just a simple box with a pinhole of light entering in it.
And this kind of looks like a box, except this kind of looks like an accordion, but I don't think you can play a polka on it.
No.
Well,
the light comes in here. This is the lens, the opening.
Ooh, can we see that?
Let's turn it around.
Wow.
And when you begin to focus, you open it up all the way, and I don't know if they can see it closing down as I close it, much like your eye might do if you look into the bright sunlight. And then if you go into a darker area, the aperture is going to open up, and you might actually be able to see the light.
And that lets the light in, right? Now, why do we have to let light into the camera?
Well, when the light enters through the lens, an image happens back here. And this camera allows me to shoot a picture, and I actually see the image on the ground glass. So when I'm making my composition, the image actually fills up this entire area, and it's absolutely beautiful to experience even just the first time. It's so beautiful. This would be a horizontal picture for my composition, and this is a vertical. And so for today's purposes, we are going to photograph you, and we have photographed you vertically.
Yikes! Well, now what kind of film do you put in this camera?
The film that I use is black and white, large format.
Down at the bottom.
Okay, and it is comes in a film holder. I think we have one film holder to show you.
Wow.
So when you're all set and you've focused on your subject and you've adjusted your setting here to make your picture, because you have to determine how much light you need to come through here, then you put your film in, and once it's into the back of the camera, you pull this out. The film's exposed. You open your lens, let the light come in, make your picture, close it, and then you remove the film.
Well, without further ado, why don't we take a picture?
Okay.
Great. Well, I'll tell you, I'll go stand here by the mailbox, and
Okay.
you can
Will you do that?
You
We'll
can
shoot you vertically
do your
today.
photography thing.
Right.
Amazing. Let's go over here. Okay. I'm ready.
Right, hold on to this. You're ready.
Be sure
All
to
right.
get my good side.
In terms of photographing you, of course, we have to point the camera your direction,
That
right?
would make sense.
Would that help to
I
do that?
think it would.
Of course, there are a lot of art photographers who believe when they're going out shooting landscapes, they'll set the camera up and focus and be all ready. Then they'll turn the camera around, and whatever is behind them, they'll shoot that. And amazing things happen when you do that. So we line it up on you, but we have to be able to see you, so we have a dark cloth. Open the lens. Now, guys, this is where the magic happens. You get under the dark cloth so that I can actually see you. There you are. And I move my bellows back and forth as I look on the ground glass, and it goes forward. There you are, all in focus. You look wonderful. Now I take the film, I put it in the back of the camera. Hold the dark cloth.
Okay.
And when we're all set, you look this way. Emote, I want energy. Counselor Carl, here we go. Cheese. And that's it.
And we have a picture.
That's simple?
That's amazing.
Oh, wait, we don't have a picture. We take the dark slide out. That was
Dark
practice.
slide. Ah, that was practice.
Okay, now, ready?
Now, I'm ready.
Cheese, Counselor Carl, on 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Fantastic.
Then we put the dark slide back in so that we can remove the film.
And then we probably have to get the film developed.
Yes, we do. We go to the dark room to do that.
Fantastic. Let's go.
Well, a lot of people think that the magic occurs on the ground glass when you're actually composing the image, but for me, the magic begins in the dark room. And it truly is dark most of the time when you're doing film. Of course, you must be completely dark when you're doing sheet film. This is the holder that we use to photograph Counselor Carl. And as you'll see, when you pull out the dark slide, it exposes the negative, which is inside the plate. I guess you could call it a plate. It's not really a plate, it's just a sheet of film. And although this is not Counselor Carl, this is a formerly exposed and processed negative. In total darkness, you take the negative out because to this point there's no image. It's just a clear sheet of film with a coating on it, which is light sensitive. We take this in complete darkness, and if you can imagine handling everything in the dark, and you take it to your trays, and you're going to develop the image in your first tray. When you place the film in, there's no image at all, and you're in complete darkness, and you watch your clock that has glow markings on it. And as you see it going around and around, you can see this little hand going around in the darkness. It's pretty much the only thing that you can see at this point. The developer, for however long, depending on your exposure, sometimes 8 minutes, sometimes 7, depending on how much density you want. Density means darkness of the image. Then you go to the stop bath, which is the next stage. Stop bath stops the developing process. You leave it here about 30 seconds to a minute. It's not that critical. You pull out your film and you go into the next bath. I'm not actually placing the film in here right now because this negative has already been developed and processed. This is the fixer. After a minute in the fixer, you can turn on the light and look at your image and see your results. And truly, that is the magical moment because the thing you photographed, that event that took place, it becomes visible for the first time as a photograph. At this point, it's a photograph on a sheet of film. And you can see this is a ship and a window in a little house in the Garden District. From here, you've got it in the fixer, and it's dripping fixer and chemicals, and you put it in the wash, and you can see these are actually prints that have already been printed and carried through to almost the completion point. But we haven't shown you yet how to do the print, so we're going to now go to the dry area and show you how you get to this part to start the printing process. In the dry area, you must be very careful not to bring anything contaminated from the wet area because everything must be completely clean and completely dry. So we are now in the dry area where the actual exposure takes place onto the piece of paper that's going to become the photograph. Here's the negative I've been holding on to and walking through the process with you. This, if you were to print this negative, it would have to be a contact print, and by a contact print, the print is the same size as the negative. I would use a contact printing frame. I would put a piece of paper in and place the negative on top of the frame. Pass the light through the negative. There's no enlargement, and the size of the paper is the same size as the negative, so the print's say 1-to-1 print size. But for today's purposes, we're going to illustrate the enlarging process. We put the negative in the carrier of the enlarger, and this piece of equipment is an enlarger. It's going to take that little negative that's 2 and 1/4 inch square and project it to become an 8x10 image. And I don't know if we can pick it up here, but you essentially go dark, turn on your light, and in the darkness you get the image here. Let me close the door and we'll just see if we can't achieve that. If not, you'll get the idea. This is the bear from Camp WALABEAR. We then take the print we've just exposed in the dark. We have no image yet, and we're going to take it to the chemistry in the wet area, and Peggy's going to show us how that process takes place.
And here we are back in the wet area, and the image has been put onto the paper. Ordinarily it's dark in here when we do this. We put it into the developer. Much like the film was done, it goes through the same process of develop. And as it's in the developer, the image begins to come up. It takes a little bit of time sometimes, and then you have it, the WALABEAR. And after it's developed, you have to stop the developing process. This is the stop bath. And from the stop bath, you get the chemicals off and put it into the fixer. And this fixes the image. Now what has actually happened here is that the coating on the paper has been affected by the chemicals so that the image has come into the fiber of the paper. And now that it's stopped and fixed, it will be washed for a while in the water. And that's to rinse out the chemicals so they will not stain the image. If it's not properly washed, it can be stained, and then your picture is ruined. After we wash it in here, we hang it up until it dries. And then we have a picture, once it's dry, of the bear.
And we are back from the lab. And as we continue our discussion of photography, with us, again, are our pals, the picture people, Sheila and Peggy. Howdy.
Howdy.
Now, earlier when we were looking at the big old-timey accordion-style camera, we were talking about light. So obviously light is pretty doggone important when it comes to photography.
And yes, actually, it is very important. And the word photography comes from the word photo, light, and graph, meaning drawing. So it is a writing. So it is, in effect, actually light writing.
You know, like, kind of like if you took a flashlight and you wrote Counselor Carl or your name or whatever, like just like that.
That's right.
Well, I see you've brought your own light here, and you're going to kind of talk about the different types of lighting.
Yes, we have simulated sunlight with a direct source of illumination, and you'll see as it lights the bear, we're going to show front lighting. When you're out with your camera and making pictures, you have to consider the direction of the light. And this is an example of front lighting.
You got a picture of it
and
right
I have
there.
a picture right here.
Shazam.
And what you'll see is that there are very few shadows showing because it's front lighting. It flattens everything. And then to simplify matters, we'll go straight to side lighting. And the side lighting situation is very dramatic, very moody,
Yes.
and so you get light on the side of the subject and a dark shadow.
It's almost kind of like an
resulting.
eclipse.
Yes.
Well,
that's right.
also, the bear doesn't have to squint. with
That's
side
right.
lighting.
That's good. And the bear doesn't, and the WALABEAR doesn't like to squint. He likes to keep those WALABEAR eyes wide open.
And then if you move the sunlight, or if you move your subject so that the sunlight was backlighting your subject, you get a lot of problems, as you'll see from this example. You can get lens flare, so you don't ever want to put the sunlight behind the subject, because you'll get...
You can't see really much of anything.
You can,
right there,
and a lot of people get results just like this from improper placement of the sunlight.
And then when you get
so.
double prints, it's no fun at all.
Yeah, it's no fun.
Wow.
Lots of fog and lots of haze.
And then what's this last one?
All
you
right, the
have?
last one might be the most ideal place to put the light, and that's three-quarter light, so that it's not directly in front and not directly behind.
So the bear doesn't have to squint, and you still get the
And
light
it's
on the
And
face.
you get a more...
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's way swell.
But this is considering if the sunlight's really bright.
Right.
But we can't simulate a cloud cover in here.
Right.
But on a cloudy day, you get really diffuse light. So that's really a beautiful light source to think about. If it's really cloudy, you don't have to worry about the placement of the sun. You just have light everywhere. You've nicknamed it Everywhere Light.
Everywhere light.
Everywhere light.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, that's great. I tell you what, I think we've got a live update from Info Bob coming in right now. So why don't we join him?
Thank you, Carl. We're coming to you almost live from the basement of the Science Building, where we have made an amazing discovery. Now, photography, as we know it, has been around for over 150 years. But, and it's a big but, the actual scientific principles that make photography possible were discovered in 1727 by Johann Heinrich Schultz, who found that certain chemicals turn dark when exposed directly to light. However, the first photograph was made in 1839 in France by Louis Daguerre, over 100 years later. And this was called, and I quote, one of the most important communications developments since the invention of the printing press. I'm Info Bob, reporting almost live from the basement of the Science Building.
This is a Camp WALABEAR special edition of Action News 10.
Good morning, happy campers. I'm Eleanor Reynolds, and this is WALABEAR News. Well, today is the big day for the Senior Bowl right here in Mobile, featuring some of college football's best. And the queen of the Senior Bowl arrived in the port city Tuesday of this week. America's Junior Miss Amy Osmond arrived at the Mobile Regional Airport. She will be crowned Queen of the Senior Bowl during the halftime festivities on Saturday. Amy will also sing God Bless America during Saturday's halftime show. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock today. Well, on to police dog news. There is a police department in Illinois that may have the first police poodle. That's right, a poodle. You normally see German Shepherds in the police dog role, but this Fido may soon be tracking down wanted criminals, drug pushers, and chewing up those who stand in his way. This 18-month-old is in training, learning how to obey orders and track, but mostly he'll be used to protect his partner and to help find children who got lost. Well, if you think that's different, how about this? It's called mutton busting, and it looks like a lot of fun. Children ages 4 to 8 years old ride on sheep bronco busting style and try to stay on for at least 6 seconds. For those who aren't sheepish, it looks like a heck of a good time. Go, go, go. And that's WALABEAR News for today. I'm Eleanor Reynolds. Thanks for joining us. And remember, study hard, obey your parents, and be kind to one another. Bye-bye.
wrapping things up here at Camp WALABEAR, where we're learning all about photography, and we're going to talk about one final element of photography, and I believe that word is called composition. Am I correct, Sheila?
Well, yes. When you're going to make a photograph, you have to think about composition.
And what exactly is that?
Composition is exactly how much of the subject to include in the picture. Do you want just the head and shoulder type of image, or do you want a full body picture, or do you want the landscape as well?
So that's kind of where the art thing comes into play, right?
And sometimes you're not sure and they both look nice. You just kind of go with whichever is the best for the moment. You have to trust your instincts on composition. For example, this picture that I'm showing you now is an example of what kind of light, children? We just talked about light. Who can tell me?
Front light.
Counselor Carl, Wesley, you're exactly right. It's side light.
Deduct 2 points.
The reason you're confused is that the shadow isn't really dark. And the reason is because, see, there's a lot to lighting that we didn't go into. And the reason it's not really dark is because there's a lot of fill light going in. But that's for another show. Okay, we'll bring Phil into another show.
Okay.
But in shooting this picture, we could think about the full body, or we could crop it like so and include just the hands, and cropping it just below the hands and the top of the head.
And it kind of becomes a different type of
It's a different image. It's nice. It's a little more intimate, but I particularly liked the full body, the legs crossed, and it's nice to have something to look at all through the picture from edge to edge. You can choose to photograph things very simply and straightforward, and that's the way I like to make pictures. The reason I've done this compositionally this way is because of the pattern of the brick behind the girl and the pattern of her dress. They're sort of repeated, and they work against each other at the same time. So there's tension in the photograph.
So really, it becomes more than just taking a snapshot of your family vacation. It actually becomes art, like a painter would paint a picture, a sculptor would sculpt a statue. Right?
That's right, because it's the whole image from edge to edge that's important. I do fun images with color, and that is I go into different places like wrecking yards and industrial sites, and I find surfaces of metal like this. This is a steel tank on the causeway. It used to be the causeway. Now is it still the causeway? There's the bayway.
I don't know.
Causeway. I think they've named it something else. But this
that's amazing.
Is an Cibachrome, so it's from colored transparency or a color slide. And this actually was there. It was something I passed and saw. And sometimes you enhance a photograph with filtration or hand coloring, but I don't enhance things at all. That's actually what you see. And I could have made different choices on composition, which will change the image entirely. And you could do a long horizontal with a little burst of cloud. To me, this one looks like the sky, something late at night looking up into a dark sky. So you can change the composition just by moving the camera around. But my final choice was this image. And this is an interesting kind of photography. This is cameraless photography. There was no camera used to make this picture at all. This is what is called a photogram. And what you do is you use a photographic paper and an object, and you place the object onto the paper, and you shine the light, and you get a photogram. So I'm making what? A white shadow, sort of a reverse shadow.
Wow. Now, what if some of the happy campers were interested in learning more about photography? What would be your advice to those happy campers?
I think they should perhaps start with a camera. There are lots and lots of cameras that are inexpensive. Just a real casual, you know, you get free cameras when you sign up at a bank and make a deposit. They give you a free camera. Your moms and dads have these kinds of things. So they could get that and get started.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming out and showing us all about pictures. And don't forget to write us here at Camp WALABEAR, P.O. Box 1548, Mobile, Alabama, 36606, and tell us what you think. So happy campers, until next time, see ya!
What's the greatest camp around? Camp WALABEAR, where everyone smiles and no one frowns. Let's all go there. What do we do there? What do we see? I'll see you and you'll see me, and we'll all play so happily at Camp WALABEAR. What's the greatest place to be? Camp WALABEAR. see. Let's all go there. What do we do there? What do we see? I'll see you and you'll see me, and we'll all sing so happily at Camp WALABEAR.